2:45 or stepping away?
I'll be away from my computer for about 10 or 15 minutes and I'll come back. Thanks.
Okay. There's a chance that I have to do that as well. So we'll see if my wife gets home in time to be at the bus stop for the kids. But we'll see how that goes.
Mr. Chair, if that's going to happen, then I would recommend that the board passes a motion to set a presiding member, given there is no vice chair.
Yes.
In your absence.
So perhaps we should do that right after the agenda. Okay. In the event that I have to, there's a chance that I don't, but there's also a chance that I do. So we should be careful. Okay. So with all of that presented and on the agenda, I think the only thing I need is where we'll be placing the BCAP funding on the agenda. I just didn't see that. And I don't have the email up in front of me. My apologies.
Sorry, it would be considered under 8G.
8G. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll kick off now, and that'll be a calling to order at 1:33 p.m. Apologies for starting a bit late, but we'll recognize that we're conducting our business today on the territories of the Nuu-chah-nulth people up and down the West Coast. Specifically, our office is located on Hupetchesset and Tashant territory. And we'll go from there. Okay, so we have an agenda before us now. I must also note that the meeting is also being recorded and live streamed on YouTube and via our website as well. So with the approval of the agenda, we do have two potential additional items, one for 8G for the potential BCAP funding for the airport, Long Beach Airport, my apologies, as well as a potential conversation and decision regarding Provincial Fisheries Ministry, either a letter or some sort of petition support. That would be under late business 12A. Are there any other items, or shall we entertain a motion?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, thank you, Director McNabb. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Shannon. Further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Great. That brings us to declarations. Does anyone have any declarations of conflict of interest? Don't believe I have any myself. Okay. We'll move on to item number 4, which are the adoption of minutes for the Board of Directors meeting dated October 14th, 2020. Thank you, Director McNabb.
Second, Beckett.
Move to adopt.
Okay. Second, Director Beckett. Any comments, errors, omissions, otherwise noted? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Okay, that brings us to petitions, delegations, and presentations. Normally we have a 10-minute maximum, though I think Inspector Rochette actually knows the drills. So we only have him on the agenda today. So please take it away, Inspector.
Well, thank you. Good afternoon. So I'm just going to go over the numbers that were provided in relation to the third quarter for the Port Alberni RCMP detachment, which means July, August, September. I'm just going to go over some of the stats, and then I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you may have. So for July, August, and September, Port Alberni RCMP detachment received 3,776 calls for service. Out of that, 612 calls were related to the regional district, which is 16% of our calls for service during the third quarter. The total number of criminal offenses have gone up by 15% if you compare to the same quarter in 2019. So if you look at the calls for service, same quarter last year, we had 558, and we did go up to 612 this year. Now, if you break it down a little bit in occurrence by crime type, and then I'll break it down even further down during with more statistics in relation to assaults and break and enters. So violent crime, numbers have gone up slightly from 18 to 24. And I'm always comparing 2019 to 2020. Property crime are remained basically the same, just slightly less, from 47 to 45. Other criminal code I've gone from 11 to 21, which is almost double the number, and I'll discuss that a bit further later in my report here. Total criminal code, 78 to 90 codes, so which is explained what I mentioned earlier, the 15% increase. And criminal traffic has gone down from 16 to 8, which is more related to driving while prohibited or driving while suspended. Criminal code offenses related to traffic violations. For violent crime, break it down in 8 categories, 7, sorry. So assaults, which went down from 8 to 12. And out of those 12 assaults, 6 of them were domestic violence. So 6 of them were related to violence in relationships, and 6 were just assault, stranger assaults, or 2 individuals that were not in a relationship. Assault with weapon, we have 2, which is the same as quarter last year. Harassment would go from 1 to 3. Robberies at 0. Sex offenses, which means sexual assault, sexual interference. We've only had 1 case in the 3rd quarter, which is the same as last year. Authoring threats from 5 to 4. And then, like I mentioned earlier, domestic violence went from 4 to 6 for the same quarter, which count for half of all the assaults this quarter. Now, if you look at property crime, which the numbers are pretty similar to the quarter, same quarter last year. Auto theft, we only have 1, same as last year. Bike theft, 0. When you look at break and enter, same quarter last year, we had 8. This quarter, we have 4, 5, 6, so slightly less. If you break it down a bit further, so break and enter business, they go down from 5 to 4. Break and enter the residence, 3 to 1. And then break and enter other, which means storage, 0 to 1. So we only have 1 incident. The biggest increase, which is mischief to property, which is vandalism, we've seen an increase by 100% from 8 to 17. Theft is 11 to 12. And then if you go down to theft from vehicles, they go from 8 to 4. I've mentioned previously, like we've seen a decrease, quite significant decrease within the Port Alberni RCMP for theft from vehicles. I think we've been quite vocal about making sure that you don't leave anything valuable in your vehicles. That I've mentioned wallet, iPad, documents, obviously change, cash, and as well as making sure you lock your doors. And so it seems that the numbers have gone down within the city as well as within the regional districts. So that's good news. And then for other criminal code, we've seen cause disturbance from 3 to 9, which is still fairly low numbers. And breach probation, breach of bail have gone from, if you had them, from 5 to 8, which is related to our increase of our crime reduction unit that's been really putting a lot of pressure on our prolific offenders, making sure they comply with their probation orders and bail orders, and working with community corrections as well, so which is the probation office in town. And lastly, intoxicating public just went from 1 to 2, which is an extremely low numbers. So if you look in totality, the calls for service have been fairly low, a little bit higher than the same quarter last year. But if you compare historically, the numbers are like 2018, it was 676, and 2017 was 601. So it's fairly similar as far as the number of calls for service. And the trends that we're seeing, the reduction of property crimes, which is the same that Island District has been experiencing as well. And as far as domestic violence, we've seen an increase across board. Hasn't been as significant within the regional district, but it's something that's been well documented in the media as far as like obviously the challenges related with COVID and the impact, financial impact on families as well as work and being confined, and which has created an increase in domestic violence, or at least reported domestic violence. But as far as the regional district is concerned, the numbers have been pretty low when you look at it, just from 4 to 6. So I don't know if there's any further questions or any clarification required, or.
Thank you, Director McNabb, and then Director Cote.
So I don't know if you have it in front of you, but the service calls figures for Port Alberni, have you got those in front of you, that sort of as a comparison?
Yes, I do have them here. So
just the calls for service, that's all.
okay, so calls for service, yes, for for the city, it's 3,164, and regional 612. So in totality, the regional district is about 16% of our calls for service.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I missed it up top there. Sorry.
No problem.
Thank you, Director Cote.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. It's always good to hear what's happening with the RCMP. Just a question about the cyber world with RCMP. Do you use sites like the local chat sites to hear about what's happening within the community?
Yeah, obviously the detachment has their own, obviously, its Facebook page that's managed by our community policing person, the manager, Dave Couson. We manage, as well as we look on Facebook or Twitter if there's anything relevant to what's going on in the community, just to stay on top of issues and not get, be blindsided by anything. Obviously, we try to stay away from rumors and false information, but I think it's always important to kind of stay on top of these things. And if there's anything that deserves kind of maybe a bit of a clarification, we don't hesitate to do that. As well as if we deal with bigger incidents and we need to monitor social media, we can request assistance from the Real-Time Information Center, which is located at Green Timbers in Surrey. So we've done that in the past as well, where there's a command center that 24/7, and there's people available to monitor social media on our behalf and provide us information on a real-time matter.
Thank you. One more question, please. Right now, there's a large population of bears and cougars within the community. Are you getting a lot of calls for that? And I'm sure you're just referring them on to conservation.
Yeah, so we haven't received a lot of calls, but usually if they call us straight from police dispatcher, or if they call here at the detachment on the non-emergency line, they're referred to conservation. So the only time we would get involved if it's something that conservation cannot be here quickly, if it's something that's actually happening, there's an attack or there's a bear close to a school, then we'll get involved right away. But if time permitting, we let conservation deal with calls when it comes to wildlife.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further comments or questions? Okay, thank you for your presentation, Inspector, and we're always happy to have you here to give the quarterly results, and I hope you have a good day. Once again, thanks for coming.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a good day.
All right. Okay. Okay, that brings us to item 6, item 6A, which is correspondence for action. This is a request for approval of remuneration for directors for VICC. Wondering if anybody would like to speak to that. Director McNabb?
So I would like to move the recommendation. Unfortunately, I've been the representative on this committee for a couple of months. That's not unfortunate, but what's unfortunate is I have a North Island 911 meeting, which I'm chairing the same day. So I won't be there. Somebody else is going to have to carry that flag. But I think it's important, really important, and I think that anybody that can attend it from council or the Regional District Board, please do that. And I think there'll be some very interesting conversation with regards to going ahead with climate change in mind. Thank you.
So November 6th is a Friday. Director Cote.
Thank you. I have attended this meeting in the past.
Oh, would you like to second the motion first before we keep going?
Second the motion.
Okay, thank you, Director Cote. Please go ahead.
I have attended this in the past. I saw it, an invitation came to me and I thought, this is good, a really good meeting to be attending. And I think it should be open to any director that's interested, but thanks.
Okay. All right, so this first item, Director Bodnar, please go ahead.
Just to say, I know some people that would be very interested on the air quality committee, and I got in touch with the person who sent that out, and they said that it would be open to anybody that we would like to have attend. So it's not just the directors that can be part of this meeting.
Okay, thank you for that. So we can have a conversation about authorizing folks to go, but let's finish off this one first about just approving the remuneration. So any further comments on that?
No.
Director Minions?
Thank you. Just for clarity, is this motion approving remuneration for anyone who wants to go, or are we going to later appoint a specific person?
I think that should be maybe a separate conversation. It seems like Director McNabb can't go, and I don't know who's interested in going as well. So
I think we could likely do. This motion just seems a little bit vague. If we are approving it generally or approving for anyone, I think we probably could just add to the motion if we want to approve multiple people or just limit it.
okay, Director McNabb.
So the motion, I would take it as approving any of the directors that would wish to attend. And I would highly recommend that that's the path that we follow. I mean, it's one thing having these meetings on a bi-weekly or monthly basis. It's another thing to kind of get to a point like this where we're collaborating and wanting to broaden the discussion and apply it within our own regional districts and municipalities. So I would say the more the merrier.
Okay, Mr. Holmes and then Director Cote.
Mr. Chair, that was how it was intended to be interpreted by the board, that the board would authorize any of the directors who wanted to go, but just for greater clarity, anybody outside of the board, of course, would not have their costs covered or any remuneration. That would be limited. That part would be limited to the board. Thank you.
Thank you. And Director Cote? And then Director Minions.
Okay, I was hoping to make the motion.
Okay, so
this time.
yeah, we can cover off who goes in another motion. So we can do that first. Director Minions, did you have a comment?
Thank you. I would just make an amendment to the motion that's already moved and seconded, that we approve remuneration for any director who wishes to attend.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Do this.
Second.
Thank you, Director McNabb. Any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Okay, now the original motion by Director McNabb and seconded by Director Cote now includes any director. So any further comment on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, so that's been carried. And yeah, we don't need another motion after that. If anyone would like to go, you can. Okay, with that in mind, then we can go to item 7, of which there is no correspondence for information. That brings us into item 8A, which is a request for decision regarding bylaw 1A1084-2. So this is board member remuneration, expenses, and benefits. So yeah, Terry, if you wanted to speak to this, please go ahead.
Sure. So this is just a minor update to align the paying of the directors, their remuneration and expense claims with what we do with the rest of payroll. So finance staff is requesting that we process this bi-weekly instead of monthly. It would just be easier on our end. So it was just that minor change. And I also took the opportunity to remind the board that the claim amounts will be increasing as of November 1st, 2020, based on the bylaw. And I provided those new rates for you as well. There's one minor error in the resolution itself. I would miss the word amendment. So the resolutions should each read board remuneration, expense and benefits bylaw amendment number A1084-2 2020.
So just to add that into each of the references to that. Okay.
Yeah, please.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Are there any speakers or comments or motions? Director Roberts?
Yeah, thank you for that. It seems to me that changing this with all the components of the payroll and notifying the board of CPI increases and so on is really a good change. I think that as the comments were made, that it really simplifies the whole payroll system, and I totally support it. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any further comments? Seeing none, with that in mind, would you like to start the ball rolling on the motions, Director Roberts?
Yeah, absolutely. That the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors give first reading to the bylaw cited as board remuneration, expenses and benefit bylaw number A1084-2 2020. The question was, there's an addition to that as well? That
Yeah, you just substitute or you add in the word amendment after the word bylaw in the motion for all of them. It's just they missed adding a word.
amendment, okay.
Yeah, so it's bylaw amendment number A1084-2.
Okay, is that okay for the first one?
Yes. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director McNabb. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion. Oh, all opposed? Motion carried.
Further, that the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors gives second reading to the bylaw cited as board remuneration, expenses and benefits bylaw amendment number A1084-2 2020.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Director McNabb. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried.
Further, that the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors give third reading to bylaw cited as board remuneration, expenses and benefits by amendment bylaw number A1048-2 2020.
Second. Thank you, Director Minions. Any further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor? Okay, that's motion carried. And finally,
That the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors adopt bylaw cited as board remuneration, expenses and benefits amended bylaw number A1084-2 2020.
and thank you, Director Cote. Seconder. Any further comments? Director Bodner, comment? No, oh, just voting. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, that brings us to item 8B, which is a marketing contract for Voyant Alert Emergency Notification System. I don't know who that is to speak to.
Hi, Mr. Chair. Heather had to step away for a moment. This is just a timing thing in that we didn't quite finish working with the successful proponent to bring the contract to the board under the procedures bylaw. So this is just asking for authorization for me to execute that. Once we finish that working with that proponent to create the contract, it won't exceed $8,000, which is the amount that it was funded to us through the Union of BC Municipalities Emergency Operations Centers and Training Grant. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or motions? Dr. Roberts?
Yeah, thanks for that. I had a discussion with Heather earlier this morning with regards to this Voyant alert system. And currently it's just specifically for the Alberni Valley and Bamfield. We're hoping that that we would be able to include some of the residents of Area C in future. However, according to Heather, that a lot of the residents out there that are hooked up close to Ucluelet are using the Connect Rocket as opposed to Voyant. So maybe we'll have to talk to them out there and see if we can get some discussion on changing to Voyant, as most of the other municipalities around are using that. So just my comment, and thanks to Heather and staff for being involved in this. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. McNabb?
I'd like to move that the Alberni-Claycott Regional District Board of Directors delegate authority to the Chief Administrative Officer to enter into a contract with the successful proponent of the Voyant Alert marketing contract not to exceed $8,000.
Seconded.
Thank you, Director Roberts. Any further comments? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, that brings us to the West Coast Multi-Use Path. I'm assuming that's Mr. McGregor. Is that yours?
Hello, yeah, that's me. Good afternoon. So at the previous board meeting, staff were directed to apply for the grant under the Community Economic Recovery Infrastructure Program for the West Coast Multi-Use Path. And one of the requirements of this grant is that construction be underway in 2021 to accommodate for any unforeseen delays in geotechnical and environmental requirements. Staff would recommend that we begin the detailed design, including environmental and geotechnical assessments, beginning in November.
Okay, thank you for that. Director Roberts?
I'd like to make that recommendation that the Alberni-Claycott Regional District Board of Directors authorize the use of budgeted $50,000 from the Regional Parks Capital Reserve and $40,000 from budgeted gas tax community works funds for detailed design work on the West Coast Multi-Use Path.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Director Johnson? Thank you for that. Any further comments, Dr. McNabb, and then Director Cote?
So just the overall budget for this. I mean, we brought forward gas tax for this project last year, and this is the same one that didn't start, as I recall. So this is another $50,000 on top of what we've already budgeted. So what are we actually paying on this?
So to the chair, this is the current budgeted, so this is not a budget amendment at all. Using the previous budget funds that was earmarked for this project, it's just to use for detailed design. Hopefully that answered the question.
Yeah. Follow up or all done?
Not really.
Okay.
So,
Director Cote?
Thank you. Through the chair to staff. So the gas tax, the community works funds was identified last year. So is that part of this year's request, or is it from last year that it continues? Because our deadline is October 31st.
So this is continued.
I can help answer.
Go ahead, Terry.
Please go ahead, Terry.
Okay, so this is us wanting to proceed with the design work, and when we budgeted the funds, we did not specify what the funds were to be used for, whether it was construction or design. We would like to proceed with the design because we think it's going to increase our chances of getting the grant funding for the construction. So we're just asking to proceed The reason why we've asked specifically for this is because if we don't proceed with the design work within a couple of years, we will have to pay back from a different reserve fund, such as regional parks, the community works funds that were allocated to this, because you cannot have just a design project without an attached construction project. So that's why it's coming back to you. It's not a budget amendment. It's actually spending the money that's in the budget. It's just that we wanted for you to be aware that if we can't proceed with the construction, that portion that's paid for by the community works funds will need to be reimbursed by another service, such as regional parks.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank
that
you.
answers my question.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Terry. Are there any further comments or questions? Okay, it was originally moved by Director Roberts and seconded by Director Johnson. So all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. All right, thank you very much. All right, and now that brings us to item D, which is the Hazelwood lease renewal request for the Long Beach Airport. Please go ahead.
Through the chair, this is a request for a 2-year lease extension for Hazelwood Construction that went to the West Coast Committee. They reviewed and supported the lease extension.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions or motions? Director Roberts?
Yes, I'd like to make that motion that the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors approve the lease renewal with Hazelwood Construction Services for a 2-year extension period from January 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2022.
Thank you for that. Seconded by Director Cole. Any further comments? All right, seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, that brings us to item E, which is an MOU regarding the ACRD Island 4x4 racing something. So,
To the chair, I'll speak on this.
please go ahead.
So, for the last 2 decades, the ACRD has held an MOU with the province to assume the responsibility for monitoring and enforcing racing and camping restrictions within a slot of Crown land for the Island 4x4 Racing Association. This is just the renewal, and their 10-year agreement with the province is contingent on us assuming that renewal.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments or questions or motions? Director Bodner.
Thank you. Yes, and I noticed that the ACRD is responsible for monitoring, inspecting, and the campsite and the racing area. And since it's way out in the middle of no man's land, can you tell me who and how often checks that facility or that area?
Through the chair, my understanding is that we're operating on a complaint-based inspection and enforcement policy. So we don't have routine set inspections, but if we were to receive a complaint from the public, we would assume those responsibilities for routine inspections and enforcement.
Mr. Irk, supplemental?
Oh, yeah, I was just going to give a little bit of background because this relates to when this area of Crown land was rezoned. There was concerns from the ACRD and some of the residents just about the frequency. So there was some conditions on limiting the number of race weekends, and then and allowing just a limited amount of camping. And I just wanted to note that you know, over the last 20 years since we've had that, we haven't had any complaints or concerns about this, and it has operated fairly well. And certainly, if something came up, we would do that. And because it was Crown land, the province, you know, back when we entered into this, you know, wanted the regional district, because we were here locally, just to take responsibility for that portion. So just as a bit of background for everybody.
Thank you for that. Director McNabb.
So I'd move that the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors authorize the renewal of the memorandum of understanding with the province to assume responsibility for monitoring and enforcing racing and camping restrictions.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Oh, Director Shannon, thank you. Okay, any further comments, Director Cote?
Thank you. So for those directors that probably don't know where Devil's Den is, can someone please explain that, please?
Go ahead.
Sorry, Mike, or through the chair, can Mike answer this one?
Hi. So this area is in the Sprout Lake area out near Woodward's Pit. It's an area of Crown land. So I think you go out. I've been there before. I'm just trying to remember the names of the roads. You go out Woodward Road, and it's the area out there. So you know, close proximity sort of to McCoy Lake Road, and just off of the industrial road that Mosaic has in the area out there. If that is any, hopefully that's helpful.
Follow up, go ahead.
Thank you. So because understanding that that is in the boundaries of Sprout Lake rural area, I'm understanding that there is a problem at the moment with unauthorized camping out by Woodward's Pit. And I'm wondering if it's near this location. I'm not really happy about camping in this area because of the potential for interface fire. And I think there needs to be more monitoring along with some kind of rules that the regional district could set out restricting campfires and camping. I'd like to know more about the camping. So thank you.
Thank you for that. I think that brings us to Director Roberts.
I'm sorry?
Did you have your hand up? I saw that you were moving your hand.
No, I mean, I thought it was self-explanatory there that the staff are working with the province in relation to unauthorized camping near the site, but then in fact it didn't, and it says clearly does not affect this agreement nor the recommendation. So I don't know what staff is doing with regards to that, working with the province at this point, but there's unauthorized camping in a lot of areas, and this just happens to be one. And I appreciate the comments with regards to potential for fires and so on and so forth, but I think it's addressed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments? Director Coots.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. From my understanding, the camping that's referred to by the 4x4 in this is the 4x4 racers themselves go out to that area that's in that compound, and they're in RVs, they're in all their rigs, they bring all their gear in, and from what I've seen, what I understand, they're very conscientious of what's happening, and I think staff has a good handle on it.
Okay. Director Cote.
Thank you. I'm not so worried about the 4x4 during an event, but it's in the off times that if we say that it's open for camping, there needs to be some restrictions around that. And I just want to make sure that that's identified with the province, that we're not wanting to see unauthorized camping when there's no events happening.
Okay, thank you. I think that's well received. Director Shannon, you had a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that in, where is it? In the summary from staff, it says that the restrictions on camping are no more than 25 campsites, no more than 5 persons per campsite, and that camping will only take place during racing events. So I think that kind of answers that. And if there's people camping there outside of that, that's beyond this MOU.
Mm-hmm. And that would be restricted then. Okay. It's a question of enforcement at that point, so that's good to know. All right. Okay, last one. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. All right, thank you for that. That brings us to item F, which is the boating safety grant contribution agreement. So please take it away.
The chair. Yes, this is an extension of our boating safety funding. So we were not able to do the Smart Lake Marine Patrol this past summer, and we're going to basically just extend the grant so we have another year to use that money up.
Thank you, Director Cote.
Thank you. This is a wonderful program, and I'd like to make the motion this time that the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors agree to enter into the amended contribution agreement with the Ministry of Transportation for 75% of the total eligible expenditures of the Boating Safety Awareness Project to a maximum of $69,750 ending September 30th, 2023.
Thank you. Seconded by Director Roberts. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Okay, motion carries. Great. Now that brings us to our separate item, the one that we added to the agenda, which is the BCAP funding for the Long Beach Airport. So, Mr. Holmes, will you be covering this off? I don't know.
Or Mr. Chair,
I didn't see Mark.
We have applied for funding through the BCAP program to extend fire protection at the airport in the West Coast, and we were successful in doing that. And so we just need a resolution to, as presented, to enter into the agreement, and as we just received it from BCAP. And so this is for we will get $431,000. And in addition, $431 and $25, and with the project total being $718,375, and so the airport capital fund would cover the remaining $287,000. And if we come under budget, we actually don't have to repay any of the $431,025. So it's a slightly unusual grant structure this year to our advantage. Happy to take any questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Okay, does everyone have the docket? Thank you, Director Cote. Go ahead.
So I'll make that recommendation that the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors enter into a conditional grant agreement with the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure through the BC British Columbia Air Access Program for the Long Beach Airport Fire Protection Improvement Project for $431,025 of project costs with no returns.
And seconded by Director Steer. I think you got there first. Okay. Any further comments? Director McNabb.
Do we get their old stuff?
You don't want it.
Okay.
Okay. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Okay. Thank you for that. All right, that brings us to planning matters. So these are for electoral area directors only. There's only a couple of them though, so everyone stick around. Okay, so that's item A is RF 19008, Cherry Creek. Please go ahead, Mr. Erg.
So this is a rezoning application. The board received the public hearing report and minutes and gave second and third reading at the last board meeting. All conditions of the rezoning have been met, and staff recommends that the board adopt this bylaw.
Thank you. Director Bodnar.
Oh, you're muted.
Oh, you're muted, Director Bodnar.
Recommend that bylaw P1400 Regional District of Alberni Clayoquot Zoning Atlas Amendment be adopted.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director McNabb. Any further comments? Dr. Roberts?
Just a quick question through the chair. How large a piece of property is this? I see it in the map, but I'm just wondering, how much acreage is it?
It's approximately 2 acres, maybe just a hair under.
Thank you for that.
Okay. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you for that. That brings us to item B, the Alberni Valley Housing Needs Report Project Update. Please go ahead.
Yes, if I can. Yeah, so just we wanted to update the board on the housing needs report. I think we had provided an update and a request to enter into a contract last meeting about the Bamfield portion of this project. So this relates to the Alberni Valley Housing Needs Report. And at this stage, just for information for the board to receive, we're just outlining how we are proceeding with this portion of the project. We are utilizing the same consultant as the City of Port Alberni, who is at the same time doing their housing needs report. And this will allow for a coordinated approach on all of the research and background work. And it also is very helpful because we're going to put out simultaneous or questionnaires and get public feedback at the same time. What we've found when we've done other projects like this, we often have a lot of overlap with city residents and regional district residents. So this way we'll be able to split out that data, be more efficient, not inundating the community with basically 2 versions of the same questions. And I think we'll get a lot more positive, better response. And then so this work is being done with the consultant, some of the background, and then staff will oversee the consultant and then be preparing the final reports for the board. And we will be providing further updates as we have more information on this project. And I'm happy to answer any questions anyone may have.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Dr. Cote.
Thank you. This is really valuable information that's coming forward with all of the federal and provincial money that's going into housing. It's very important that we have this information. And the Health Network thanks the Regional District for taking this project on.
Thank you for that, Director Cote. Do we have any further comments? Okay, I don't like to move it. Director Cote?
I'll just move that the Board of Directors receive the Alberni Valley Housing Needs Report Project Update.
Thank you. Seconded by Director McNabb. Any further comments? Seeing none. All those in favor, directors? All opposed? Motion carried. Alrighty, that brings us to item 9.2, which includes Tofino. Please go ahead.
And again, this is an information report. This is the other project that Amy Adaka is working on. And so certainly, she's taking the lead and doing, the all of the work or the bulk of the work on these projects. And just so wanted to provide the board with an update on the zoning bylaw update and just discuss some of the what staff have envisioned about engagement, specifically in the COVID world that we are in right now. And so staff are proposing a survey to go out to the community with a couple of prizes or potential for people to win prizes when they when they complete the survey. So wanting to get some feedback there. We're also considering some additional advertising for when we get to the public hearing stage, which is certainly something we have done in the past with other projects like that, but we'll be conscious of sort of the new information and that when we get to the public hearing stage, we most likely will be doing this electronically or through Zoom like we have with other public hearings. There's also sort of some sections around Bamfield because we've had some concerns from some Bamfield residents, and we've spent a significant amount of time sort of working through those. And I just want to note that in the community plan and in the approach to the zoning project, staff have recognize that Bamfield's in some is a unique situation, is that it is a fairly small remote community, but it also serves as a service center in a way that the other electoral areas don't service centers. Long Beach is in close proximity to Hewlett and Tofino, and the Alberni Valley portions of the electoral areas are all have Port Alberni as a service center. So we want to do that, and then some of the areas where residents have concerns relate to. We've been able to address some of them, but not necessarily all of them. So the current zoning bylaw has some, I would consider, some more urban type zones, and what we're wanting to do is bring it up today to the current standards and things like that. So we certainly have considered life safety and environmental considerations, things around climate change that the province provides guidance on how we establish setbacks that are very different from when the zoning bylaw was adopted in 1973. And one of the examples, is that some of the commercial zones have 0 side yard setbacks, and that's very difficult when we have a remote community with a very small volunteer fire department, and that poses a risk, having those 0 side yard setbacks. So we've certainly coordinated, working with our fire services coordinator on recommendations for this, and we'll be bringing some of that information forward as part of our rationale for really at this stage what staff have recommended for zones and the setbacks and things like that in those zones. And again, I am happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Thanks. Any comments or questions? Dr. Cote.
Thank you. Through the chair to staff. Just wondering, will this be going to the APCs next month or this month? Or
don't have the dates when it will go to the APCs. We're looking at doing some updates. We're still gathering the feedback from the agencies that we've asked to comment on this, and certainly the information is out there, and then we want to have a sort of a package that through the consultation, both public and agency consultation we've done, that is fully updated before we take it back or take it to the APCs, but we will be bringing it to them fairly soon. And then there's also the consultation, the public consultation, and the survey that we proposed in there. It's going to take a little bit of time, because that's going to take another 3 weeks as well. So does that answer your question?
Sort of. So it kind of sounds like this is going to run into next year with all of the consultation that's required.
Yeah, so some of the consultation is required, and then staff were also asked to come up with some other ideas to make sure that we've engaged the community and brought them, a recent update that came up from the board recently as well. So that was, we sat down and, as staff and as a team and sort of looked at, given the situation we're in now with not being able to hold a traditional open house and meet large groups of people in person, how can we engage the community? And we thought a survey and with some prizes for people that participate in the survey, might be a good, we'll get some good feedback on how people feel or their thoughts on the zoning bylaw. And consultation, yes, absolutely does take time.
Can I suggest also running something on the local TV with a report so that people can understand and then point them to the survey? I think that just having the survey is not going to be that effective if people don't know it's there.
Yep.
Or what it's about.
We'll certainly look at that option.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further comments? Seeing none, shall we receive their update? Director Roberts?
Yeah, so moved that we receive, let's just get to the beginning here, that the Board of Directors receive the zoning bylaw review project update.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Beckett. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Okay. That brings us to item 9.3, the agriculture plan implementation for 2021 to 2022 contract.
Yeah, so the last item I have to speak about today is the board had at the last board meeting asked us to ask staff to bring forward the agriculture support workers contract for an extension. And we're more than happy to do that. Just to give some continuity to this work. So this project is funded through regional planning, and we have been doing it for a number of years. And the recommendation is just that the board authorize the CAO to enter into the contract with Eden Tree Farm and Garden. And Alex had in his report, it sort of put some background and history, sort of where we've been and where we're at. And I am happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Thank you. Director Cote.
Thank you. Thanks for this, because this is going to help to bridge that gap that we always face between the end of a contract and budget time. So this will secure our contractors. I'm just also looking at the amount because of the proposed projects that we have coming forward. I'm just wondering if this amount is going to be enough, or if there's a way that we could top it up somehow if needed with regard to the projects that are coming forward. Thanks.
Certainly. So this is I would just describe it as the base contract, and there has been additional add-on work. Last year there was some of the work done for the West Coast Addendum and adding on, as well as, another example was some of the army worm work that was done sort of in concert with the province and funded. And there's certainly opportunities to do that. And also there is the Vancouver Foundation grant that we're applying for. And so if we're successful in that, we certainly will be bringing a report back to the board in the next spring, on how that would need to be rolled out and funded, and what contract requirements there are, et cetera. In this way, this is the base contract to keep things going, and then we can certainly report back as more grant opportunities and things come in. So.
Thank you. Any further comments? Okay, would we like to entertain the motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, thank you, Director Cote.
That
Seconded
the Board
by
of Directors authorize the CAO to enter into a contract with Eden Tree Farm and Gardening to provide agricultural support services until December 31st, 2022, with the cost of contract not to exceed $35,000 per year.
Thank you. And I saw seconded by Director McNabb, but did anyone have any comments? I thought I saw Director Shannon. Please go ahead.
Thanks. Just a question, and I had talked to Doug about this. Is it beneficial to change the end of the contract date so it kind of aligns better when we're budgeting? So we're not kind of talking about this in October for end of December, like to stagger it till like the end of March or April. If not, fair, but I just thought I'd ask.
We can. There is some contract and tendering law sort of that sets out the limits and how we've done that. And then this one has historically just been an annual contract, so it does expire in at the end of this year. I mean, for the future, we certainly could look at making those changes as we move forward, and we could bring more information back to the board. As far as how we want to amend it, I would want to review with Mr. Holmes and Ms. Fong about sort of some of the financial implications and some of the requirements we have around our tendering and contract requirements before I commit to anything like that, to making it longer than it is right now. So.
Any further comments? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Okay, motion carried. So just as an update, because I completely forgot, my wife will make it in time, so I can stick around. Okay, that makes it item 10.1, which are our staff reports. So I think the verbal report from Heather is up next.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll just give a quick EOC update for the COVID response. Provincially, there are 2,322 active COVID cases. Yesterday, there were additional 217 new cases in the province, mostly located in the Fraser Valley. There are an additional 5,101 people under active monitoring, so have been a close contact of somebody who has COVID. In Island Health, yesterday there were 3 new cases. Currently there's 3 in South Island, 3 in Central Island, which is our area, and 3 in the North Island. There's no hospitalizations in Island Health due to COVID. Island Health has recently updated their daily dashboard showing the number of cases. They're providing a bit more detail about how people have got COVID, so whether it would be related to travel within the province or travel outside of BC, community exposure. So if you're interested, please look at Island Health's website, just a bit more detail than they had been providing in the past. As I'm sure most of you know, Dr. Bonnie Henry came out with a new provincial health order on Monday, which puts limitations on gatherings in private homes to no more than your immediate household plus an additional 6 people. So this is a province-wide order and it applies to all homes for all occasions. How this is enforced is not overly clear at this point. I did see some reference to enforcement being targeted towards the Fraser Valley. As well, Dr. Bonnie Henry talked on Monday about there's an expectation of wearing a mask in a public place. But I wanted to be very clear that this is not a provincial health order. It's an expectation or a recommendation. And then locally, our funding for the shower facility for the vulnerable population in Port Alberni remains active. That's renewed on a monthly basis. And we're continuing with some communications with the community on COVID. But overall, Vancouver Island is doing much better and continues to do much better than the remainder of the province. But everybody still needs to do their part, needs to do the precautions that have been outlined over the last few months to ensure that we stay healthy. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Dr. Minions.
Thank you. Thanks for the update. I'm just wondering if it's time for us to ramp up our communications locally again. And the reason, I mean, obviously with cases generally on the rise, people are feeling more concerned, but specifically with having cases separately at 2 different schools. I think the concern in the Alberni Valley, at least, certainly is growing, and people are I think people are expecting to hear from us more than they are right now. So I agree, we've done fantastic on the island, and there may not be, the imminent concern that there is in some other parts of the province, but I think it might be time to do more like we were prior, to try to be proactive and make sure that we're reminding people of their good habits and that kind of thing, just keeping them informed and keeping them coming to us as an information source.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's a great idea, and we can do that if our spokesperson's willing to support that.
Okay, that sounds great, and that I think is something we do need to do. With that in mind, I have a question about the next staff report. Is this something that Janice is reporting on, or is this just a piece of reporting? I just on item D, it says nomination appointment to BC Ferry, and then it says Janice Hill, like she's handling it, but it doesn't say verbal.
It has been handled, Mr. Chair. The parties have been informed, and the nomination has been accepted. The board of directors often takes these types of considerations in camera, and the direction of staff was to report out once Shelley Crest had been contacted and had accepted the nomination, and that has happened. So this is just for information. Thank you.
Okay, it just looked like we were nominating Janice to me at first place. Okay, so with that in mind, would anyone like to entertain a motion to receive the staff reports? Thank you, Director Roberts. Seconded by Director Bodner. Okay, any further comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Motion carried. Okay, no committee reports. That brings us to member reports. Director McNabb, please go ahead. 911 Corporation. Oh, you're...
I'm putting on my party hat. 25 years that North Island 911 has been in service, and we're having a gala celebration. Everybody's invited. It's by Zoom, and you bring your own treats and beer. So, like, big celebration. So I'd just like to say that we actually we had our strategy meeting on Monday, and discussed the things that will take to move North Island 911 forward. Currently, we're doing approximately 96,000 calls to North Island 911 through our contractor at ECOM, who's taking the calls for police and ambulance, and then our contractor at Campbell River Fire Department, who are taking 16,000 calls for fire and fire rescue a year. So it was a great kind of a cohesive event. Our strategy meeting, it was a really good discussion. We'll have a report on it coming up by our next meeting, which is on the 6th of November. And it's an awesome service. There's other folks that are looking to use the service, and I think that we've got a really bright future coming along down the line. So thanks to all the staff of North Island 911, our dispatchers, and the management team that we have to carry this thing through. So that's it. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, any questions? Okay, well, I'll bring my hat to the celebration.
Yeah.
Okay, so that brings us to Regional Library. Dr. Cote.
Thank you. Just received a email yesterday, news release that we're going to be seeing openings at our local libraries. Doors have already been opened in Nanaimo, Wellington, Bowser, Cowichan, South Cowichan, Quadra Island, Sayward, Bellacoola, Sontula, Port Clements, and Queen Charlotte City. So we're in the next phase of openings. So we should have the Port Alberni Library, the Tofino and Ucluelet libraries all open later this week or by next week. So that's the projection. Our walkthrough service is limited, but there will be a walkthrough service opened up right at present. You pick up your reserved books at the door, but they're going to be opening. And they also, I'm not sure if we're going to have sit down in our library or not, but we're also scheduled to get a expansion on the Port Alberni Library to the tune of like $1 million. So looking at some structural changes that needed to be addressed, and hopefully that'll be started by the new year. Tofino is looking at getting a new library, but still hasn't figured out where it could go. So that's on the wish list. So that's my report. Thanks.
Great, thank you for that. Okay, that brings us to item C, which is the Alberni Valley Chamber of Commerce. Dr. Minions.
Thank you. No updates from meetings, but the Chamber of Commerce, on behalf of the City of Port Alberni, is handling the Welcome to Port Alberni sign. So that's one project that they have going on right now that we are looking for feedback and ideas from the members of the public. So members of anywhere in the Alberni Valley are welcome to submit ideas and concepts to the Chamber. And then their other big project is managing the Clay Mill. Of course, it has been a very strange year for that. They came forward at the beginning of the year with a really, in my opinion, strong business plan for how they were going to market and gain revenue through events and weddings and that type of thing. And unfortunately, it's been a very challenging year, of course, for that, with most of the work they were planning to do not able to be done, but they have made some great progress out there. And I think they've taken it as, you know, a year to pause and really reflect on planning and have put some good plans in place for the future. So that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you for that. All right, that brings us to the Air Quality Council for Port Alberni, Dr. Bodnar.
Thank you. There's so far this year, there's only been 3 wood stove exchanges done, and in our community, the sales seem to be quite low. The Alberni Air Quality Society has 3 different projects that they're looking at. One is to explore the public education curriculum from grades 5 to 7 with regards to air quality and local issues. And to looking at creating a roundtable with Cowichan and the emerging Comox Valley to identify a regional project. And they're looking to identify a city-owned building to use as an emergency smoke refuge that could provide clean air for the elderly or for people with having respiratory problems. And an ongoing issue that we're still working on is coming up with some ideas to put the bylaws, the existing bylaws into effect to enforce upgrading wood stoves. So that's it.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, that brings us to West Coast Aquatic, of which there is no one who can give an update, I believe. And then to the, AVICC, Dr. Cote.
Thank you. No report. We do have our first meeting with the new executive on next Thursday. The election did happen through UBCM. It was interesting. Unfortunately, Director Solda didn't end up getting her seat back, but it looks like an exciting new year. And as you know, I was acclaimed, so looking forward to it. I have heard of a few things that people are interested in us lobbying for, so we'll keep you informed as we move forward. Thanks.
And congratulations on being acclaimed.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to Beaver Creek Water Advisory Committee, Director McNabb.
No report. We're keeping the pressure on, and everything's good. So we've got a meeting next week, actually, so discuss all the things about water.
Okay, thank you for that. You want to just continue into West Island Woodlands?
Yes, West Island Woodlands Advisory Group. I'm down a pint of scientific information, so we have a meeting coming up shortly. I think it's the week after next, if I'm not mistaken, but I'll fill you in on all the riveting facts of that when we have it.
Okay, thank you for that. That brings us to the Agricultural Development Committee, Director Shannon and Cote.
Yeah, thank you. We didn't have a meeting in November. I think I would just note from our one in October that they're planning going forward with the Grow Local program for the backyard gardening as they had done this year. Our next meeting will be December 8th. And I mean, as per our previous agenda item, they've got grants in the works. So hopefully those come through.
Thank you. Any other reports? Seeing none, can we have a motion to receive the reports? Thank you, Director Cole, and also seconded by Director McNabb. Okay. With that in mind, any further last comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. All right, thank you. That brings us to no unfinished business, and then finally to the late business, which is the provincial fisheries ministry conversation. So, Mr. Holmes, did you want to introduce it, and then we kind of just go straight to Director Cole, or much? How should we do this?
Mr. Chair, I would just offer a couple observations that the Board of Directors resolved to seek a meeting with Agriculture Minister Popham, not last UBCM, but the one before, I think it was, and for the specific purpose of talking about creating more of a fisheries presence in the Agriculture Ministry, or else even a separate fisheries ministry. And nothing really came of that meeting or that request. So I raise that now just to let you know that the board has been on record about supporting the notion of this. Whether or not signing a petition is exactly the way to go, we did receive this a little bit late. I would ask Director Cole to speak to this, and an alternative to signing a petition would be just for the board to use its own voice and to write a letter to the Premier to consider a fisheries ministry with either more prominence within agriculture or a separate fisheries ministry for British Columbia. I think I would leave it at that unless there's any questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Director Cole, if you wanted to take it away.
Hi, sorry. Yes, I did just receive a text from Mako this morning to check my mail where he had forwarded the information from, sorry, now I'm just trying to pull it up here. And in reading through it, I guess my first instinct, I just sent it off. I sent it to Tofino, I sent it to Cal, and I sent it to Doug, not knowing, reading it, knowing that they need the support, the signed support for basically the end of day tomorrow. So and I don't know how these things normally come to be, but that it would be creating a new cabinet minister and removing the fisheries portion from the agricultural minister and having somebody, sort of solely about all things in the water. I thought it was a no-brainer because it would behoove all of our coastal communities to have, a specific minister just for that. And I know that the new cabinet thing, that the information just came out that this is going to be done in the next week. So I guess I just didn't want us to miss the boat if we could even support in something that, is certainly of the interest of our coastal communities.
Okay, are there any comments? Director Shannon.
Thank you. I just have a question. Is this, I support it. My question is this specific to saltwater fisheries or freshwater, or kind of like or a bit of both? Where are we asking for this?
So,
sorry, in reading it, the only information that I have is what I've shared. And it says fish harvesters, support fish harvesters, community-based small fishing business in coastal communities.
Okay, yeah, because I read that too. I just wasn't sure if that included trout farms along with what I would assume would be mostly saltwater fish. But if we're not there yet, we're not there yet.
Yeah, I don't know.
Director Cote.
Thank you. This has been an issue with the Minister of Agriculture, that there's been very little support for fisheries through that ministry. There was millions of dollars given to BC fisheries that bought back licenses, and the money was supposed to go back into the communities, and it's been very difficult to get that information and to see where that money's going. Working with First Nations, it'd be a very good split off to actually have a ministry of fisheries, but there needs to continue a link between Ministry of Agriculture and Ministry of Fisheries, because it is farming, it's to some factor. The different types of like oyster fisheries and kelp fishing, and then there's salmon, there's aquaculture. Where does that all fall in? It's I think it's a little bit bigger than just a support. Yes, but I'd like to see more information. But I do support a bigger area, maybe a sub committee, a ministry with agriculture. But I do see them put together. Thanks.
Okay, are there any further comments?
I think that one impression I was under, and my experience is very limited, is that up until now there was this gap, which unless the part of the ocean and fisheries that we were talking about was farmed, then it kind of fell under agriculture, but it was everything outside of things that are specifically farmed. So all the rest of the wild fisheries, I think, didn't really have a fair support system and kind of fell between the cracks. But
Director Cote?
Thank you. Agreed, but I'd really like to see that definition put out there. I think it's important that it's identified for our support. Thanks.
Yeah. So on this, I think there's a thread of something that we should consider in regards to a letter. If it's a true petition with signatures and everything like that, then it might be best if we leave signing such a petition to the discretion of each of the directors. In the event that that's up to them, they want to do that. I think my only proviso would be that signing petitions can often make it so that the perception of being impartial, if this were to ever occur to us later, might be difficult, but I don't think that's too much of an issue. My first impulse here was to resist this whole idea, given that the separation of powers is fairly obvious in the Constitution when it comes to who owns what in the senior governments. That being said, the way that this is being portrayed and what I've read and what I've heard so far is that this seems to be more about where are the mechanisms to support food production in the same way that agriculture, farming and ranching and that sort of thing gets from the province and gets that kind of access to people making decisions. And I think from my perspective, there is something there to that, to say nothing of like harvesting things on the byshore and all that kind of thing. But if I were to think of the power of various lobbies, the sports fishermen have an order of magnitude more influence in Ottawa than commercial fishermen do. And that is an issue. Another issue is that the interface between the ocean harvesting and then going on shore is this strange transfer of authority from federal to provincial without a conversation about the protections or policy decisions that should govern how you maintain the fisheries on the demand side rather than the supply side. And I think that's where we definitely should see some interaction or involvement of agriculture in the same way that you see programs and political support to fishermen the same way that farmers and ranchers do and can get. So there's something there to that, I think, because commercial fishermen sometimes don't get the same support levels that you might see for sports, but then to kind of compare on to the farm lobby and that sort of thing, it's markedly different. So I think this warrants us looking into it, not too hard. I don't want to spend too many resources on it, but I think there's something there. I think we should take some time to be more specific though, because of the far-ranging impact support of commercial fisheries on the demand side, on the how do you interface with the market, who overtakes that and oversees it. It's a lot of it is provincial, and I think we need to look at that as well. Mr. Holmes, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, that we're completely happy to execute the will of the board. What I would observe is we did do a fair bit of research for the minister meeting sort of 25 months ago or something like that. And so I think we would be able to, if the board's interested, we'd be able to prepare a reasonably informed letter fairly quickly. Just thinking about it, it'd be easier to try to persuade a government to create a ministry or affect a ministry before the portfolios are actually struck after government is confirmed and the cabinet is chosen.
Okay. So just as a follow-up, I may have a conversation with you, Director Cole, and hopefully we can have maybe a joint call with Mayor Noel and Director Cote as well. This reminds me of when the ACRD was host to the large Vancouver Island Agricultural Show. First Nations participated through participation in fisheries, although Hope Etchison did have the maple syrup going on, but I think we've already demonstrated in this region the coordination between food producers, whether or not and I think what you said was right, is that fishing is akin to farming. So for First Nations especially, fishing was how we created a surplus to have a society. And it's a lot like how agriculture is in many other societies. So there's definitely something there culturally as well. So I think this is worth pursuing. Director Cote?
Thank you. Within the Alberni Valley, we have the new food hub down at the harbor. So that takes into consideration food, aquaculture, produce, and all kinds of agricultural opportunities. So splitting that up, it might cause some kind of barriers that would have to be addressed if you start separating fisheries out of agriculture. So I just want to be wary of what could potentially be coming forward. Thanks.
I think that's important to note as well. I think we can take time to be smart about our interactions with the provincial government on this. So we can go from there. Director Roberts.
Yeah, through the chair, thank you. If you decide, or when you decide to have a joint meeting, I wouldn't mind participating in that as well, if that's okay.
Okay. I think that should be more than fine. I think it's a more the merrier kind of thing. I was hoping it would be informal and just a quick conversation, but it may turn into something more as time goes by. But I'll keep everyone in the loop on that. But I want to be responsive to Mayor Noel's time as well. So, okay, that was a great conversation. I'd like to thank Director Cole for bringing it up, and I think we can actually take this ball and keep it moving. And if we don't see activity now, we can plan into the future as well. Okay, so that brings us to item 13, if we're okay. Should we have like a receive the information motion, or is the conversation enough? All right, I think we'll just move on then. So that brings us to question period. Did we receive anything in the chat or the email?
Mr. Chair, no, we did not receive any input from the public respecting the meeting today.
Okay, thank you very much. And am I missing anything? No? Okay, so I think that brings us to in camera.